I just wanted to thank the city attorney for being here this evening. So the reason that I invited the city attorney to be here is because, as you all know, there's been, the Board of Supervisors recently passed a law that affects the sanctuary city policy with regard to youth who are immigrants in San Francisco. And there's been a fair amount of confusion. There's been a lot of activism around it. There's been a lot of discussion in the community, and I wanted to give the city attorney the chance and opportunity to come and speak directly to our membership and answer and kind of give his perspective and answer any questions that we may have. So thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you, David, and thank you, members of the Mill Club. Really, for me, mostly I'd like to answer your questions. Let me just say, I know that this has been a very, very heated policy discussion within the body politic of San Francisco over the course of the last year. And there has been a lot of good work that has been done in the community to make sure, or to do our level best to make sure that immigrant youth are protected here in the city and county of San Francisco. I know we had Supervisor Campos here who drafted the amendment to our sanctuary ordinance to reverse the Juvenile Probation Department's policy when it comes to reporting youth on booking of a felony, and I want to applaud him for his activism and compassion and sincerity in dealing with a very, very difficult issue. And I will tell you that the fact of the matter is, I don't think we'd be in a position where we're requiring the good work done by Supervisor Campos and many of the community activists, like I see we have Angela Chan here from the Asian Law Caucus and many others, to focus on an issue that really is a function of the fact that we haven't had what we need here, not just here in the city and county of San Francisco, but in the country, and that's immigration reform. We need a full-fledged effort to make sure that immigrants are protected and valued and not vilified and scapegoated in the United States of America like they have been over the course of the last several years. And we all know that when you have an economic downturn, what's the first thing that folks do? Xenophobia is what happens, and you blame the problems on the other guy. And I think that there is a particular irony in the fact that many of the folks that are opposing immigration reform, namely those on the hard and far right, are those that cause a lot of the economic problems that we're all suffering from. So I say that by way of background and to applaud Supervisor Campos, the community activists, for their activism in going out and trying to make sure that immigrant youth are protected and doing the best that they can in a very, very difficult environment. And the unfortunate thing is that they have to do that work in a construct that we have where federal law with respect to the issue of immigration is supreme. And unfortunately, those are the realities of what we have to deal with, irrespective of whether we agree with the policy objectives of what Supervisor Campos and others have really tried to forge. That's the first thing. The second thing is, also at the federal level, we have this sort of thing hovering over the top of this entire debate. And that is, we still have a Republican U.S. attorney here in the city, in the Northern District of California, after a year after President Obama's been in office, who has forget about what we're talking about with respect to reporting youth, who 20 years ago, when the sanctuary ordinance was first passed, he did his level best to obfuscate, stand in the way of the implementation of the original sanctuary ordinance. And now he's back in that office and has yet to be replaced. So it is a very, very difficult situation. And I empathize with the plight that many immigrant youth find themselves in with respect to the reporting that is occurring by virtue of the policy that has been put in place at the Juvenile Probation Department when it comes to reporting. Reporting now, juvenile probation policy requires that on booking of a felony, youth be reported. Supervisor Campos, and I'll let him speak for himself if I misstated, but his amendment that passed a little bit over 60 days, over 60 days ago, basically, for lack of a better term, would basically require that instead of doing the reporting on booking, the reporting would be after adjudication in the courts, such that the reporting would not have to occur. There have been the Asian Law Caucus and others, community folks, have come forward and put forth their own policy, as it were, to see, hey, could this change what the Juvenile Probation Department is doing? And we have been in the process of working with those community groups to look at, okay, where are areas where perhaps Department of Juvenile Probation policy can be adjudicated and still be comport with federal law, and we have given our legal analysis. Now, the controversy with respect to what I had to say, and my advice was, well, Dennis, why don't you simply advise that the Juvenile Probation Department could automatically, well, not could, why don't you advise that they had to implement the, for lack of it, the Campos Amendment? And if you go and look at the amendment, and you look at our opinion, which is online, the opinion that was drafted said that the amendment would be implemented to the extent allowed by federal and state law, making for the allowance, as the supervisor recognized, that there was federal law that was involved here because of federal immigration policy. So the long and the short of it is, our advice has basically said, Juvenile Probation Department, you could implement the Campos Amendment. You don't have to, but you can, but be aware that these legal risks are what could occur. The number one being, because of federal law with respect to reporting, we run the risk that if the Campos Amendment was implemented and Juvenile Probation Department officers were disciplined for not complying with the amendment, that the U.S. Attorney could attempt to criminally prosecute Juvenile Probation Department officers and any other people that in the city family that were working with them. Now, I tell you that because that has been what has unfortunately had to guide some of our advice, the threat of criminal prosecution. What I did in the aftermath of the passage of the amendment was try to get assurances from the U.S. Attorney that he wouldn't prosecute anybody, in the hopes that that would give me some latitude to say, hey, there's not a lot of risk there, you could fully implement what Supervisor Campos passed. That assurance was not forthcoming.